It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Edward Opperman. You can find me at your leisure at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting. If you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. You know, it's so funny. That song, Pink, I'm coming up. Better get this party started. What do you call it? When that song first came out, we had just moved to Vegas. And back in those days, my ex-wife used to take Victoria back to New York, to Staten Island. We had a house in Jersey, too, the little Jersey Shore. I used to take Vic back there for a couple of weeks in the summer. And what was it? The Palms Casino had just opened up. And they had the 9 Steakhouse, and they had the club up there. I think it was called the 9 Club, too. And I had gotten some free passes to go up there. Free passes for the comps for the steakhouse and for the club. And I was so excited. You know, okay, the kids are out of town. The wife's out of town. I can go out partying. I'm playing my Pink. Get ready to go out partying. And what happens? I go and I look in my closet for my clothes, my dress party clothes. And my ex-wife had taken all my cool going out clothes and she had stuffed them in the bottom of the hampers. I couldn't go out while she was gone. I didn't know until the last minute, so I couldn't rush to the cleaners, get it back till the next day. Unbelievable. So if you like our show, you like these crazy stories, go back to go check out the Opperman Report on Patreon. The Opperman Report Patreon. That's where we you get all the shows ad-free, commercial-free, and ad-free. Go to Patreon. And I got a lot of cool stuff up there right now. I got 2 YouTube videos up there in the free section of Miranda Corset's kidnappers and murderers. This couple here down in Florida kidnapped this little kid, Miranda Corset. And they held her there, and they tortured her, and they raped her, and mutilated her, and they dismembered her, and disposed of the body. This horrible, horrible story. And I had gotten involved in this early on, way before it hit the news, just when she was just a regular missing kid. Hey, when the family said, hey, my little cousin hasn't come home, has anybody seen her? I got involved in this way back then, before anybody even knew she was seriously missing. In fact, they even said, well, she does this all the time, And it turns out that this crazy guy, met her on Grindr and took her back to his place. He had 2 other women there. Only one other woman got arrested. One of them just walking around scot-free right now. She was there for the whole thing. His mother was aware of the whole situation. A lot of people knew about this. Another friend of his knew about the whole situation. A crazy, crazy, crazy case, man. He called the cops while he was holding this young girl prisoner and told the cops, I got this girl here. She stole my ring. She has it inserted in her body. I can find the ring with my metal detector. Come down here and forcibly search her. Cops did nothing. And you listen to this confession with the 2 of them. They're just out of their minds, these 2. And then even worse, insult to injury. A client of mine, and it wasn't a criminal client or anything like that. It was I helped with her divorce case. Because I'm paralegal too. So if someone says, hey, can you do my divorce for me, a bankruptcy, something like that, I'll do that for them too. Cheap. Just filling out some paperwork. It's a piece of cake. So then I helped her out. We became friendly, and then it turns out she knows this woman who did part of this kidnapping and this murder. Crazy story. And then the guy turns out, during his confession, he talks about how he would get these animals off of Craigslist and torture them and kill them in this apartment. And he says, oh, yeah, you go in there with that luminol, there's going to be blood all over the apartment, all over the walls. And I says, how many have you gotten these animals? Too many to count. Hundreds. That's what's going on, in your neighbor's apartment right next to you, man. It's just going on right out there all over the world. Who the hell knows, what's going on in people's heads? But Miranda Corset, that story is up there. You can find that. Just fascinating. And then also, too, I stumbled upon, we interviewed Mike Sager last week. You heard it. And he had lived and worked with Hunter Thompson, and he knew Mickey, the Pope of Pot, Mickey Cesar, down there from Bleecker Street, Dialer Joint, who I also knew. And, we talked about John Holmes, too, that story. And he has a really good documentary about John Holmes. He got a lot more out of the young lady, I forget her name, Dawn Schiller, than I did when I interviewed Dawn Schiller. So, it turns out, there's this guy, Rackenberg, whatever his name is, Rakowitz, I think it is. And, a famous story back in New York, he killed this ballerina who was a roommate of his, and cooked the body and served the body to the homeless in Tompkins Square Park. And his confession is up there, too. And, the guy, I always imagined the guy would be a lot more crazier, but he really seemed kind of sane in his interview there. It's just, you never know what you're going to run across. But he was a member of the Church of the Realized Fantasy. That was Mickey Cesar's Pope of Pot. He was the Pope of the Church of the Realized Fantasy. And also to the Dialer Joint, ran Dialer Joint. He got his pot through AJ Weberman, who we've had on the show many times. It's kind of fascinating, too, how you see, AJ, they just did piece about him in the New York Times, and when you look in the comments, people are saying, Ed Opperman, Opperman report. You know, how people heard of AJ through me. You know, and here's this guy hung out with John Lennon, you know, wrote the book Coup d'etat in America, about the JFK assassination, that almost every JFK researcher we've ever had on the show has mentioned that book. You know, even E. Howard Hunt's son mentioned that book, too. And the three tramps in AJ's work. And he was sued by E. Howard Hunt. We've had some great stuff on this show, man. You can't deny that. And we have some coming up to look forward to. Coming up, and you better get this party started. Oh, God. Anyway. Oh, by the way, too, we ran into Pink one time in Vegas. She lived in Pink with her husband there, Corey Hart, who was anyway, what do you call it? So it was funny. We ran into her buying furniture one time. Okay, she was at the furniture store. Same time we were there buying furniture. But there's a funny story about Corey Hart. When he had that reality TV show with the tattoos, he was a motorcycle guy and hooked up with Pink. And they lived on this little cul-de-sac in Vegas, in North Las Vegas. We lived on a nicer part than they did. And we had a nicer house than they did, too. And what do you call it? I lived on a golf course. The Rio Seco Golf Course. Look it up. That's where the Tiger Woods swing coach, Butch Harmon, had his school of golf. And that's where the guy who founded PayPal lived, too, as well. Smokey Robinson lived there. Mike Tyson lived there for a while. LaToya Jackson lived there for a while. Really cool spot. One of those boxers, I forget which one, the one who was getting arrested all the time. He lived there. I forget his name. Anyway, the story comes around. Corey Hart had this warehouse where he would sell his merch. He had T-shirts and hats and things that he sold from his fame of his reality TV show. And so these workers are there, and I guess they weren't that busy. You know, he hired his friends and stuff like that, his old buddies, to work in his warehouse to run his merch for him. And so they decided to create a little shooting range, like an indoor gun range where they would do some target practice with their guns. So what they did was they took the boxes with the T-shirts and stuff, and they used it as the backdrop for their shooting gallery there. And it turns out that the shooting went through the boxes and through the wall of the warehouse there into the next offices of the next warehouse. I don't even think that story made the news, man. But that's a little inside gossip for you from good old Las Vegas. Coming up, so a lot of good content up in Patreon. Okay, keep an eye out for that. Noah's Ark. We did an interview about this fellow who's down there in Turkey at the border of Iran. Who a very great interview. I really enjoyed it. It went so fast. He really enjoyed it too. And it was right, but during the time of the bombing of Iran, when this guy was there. So we had a moment to talk about that a bit. And then when they did that big bunker bomb of Iran, too, I called him up to find out how he was doing. He says, yeah, you could see the smoke. You could hear it. You could feel it. But, you know, no. He says, no problem. I'm still okay. You know? Oh, God. Anyway, so we had him on the show. It really sucks, man, because I know some guys from Press TV, too. They bug me every now and then. They want me to come on there. Which now I'm starting to do interviews again, even though some of these people, these crazy little podcasters, man, these guys are just such egomaniacs, man. You know, they got nobody listening to their show, and you would think, you know, that they're the Johnny Carson, trying to get through a pre-interview with these characters. It's just the funniest thing in the world. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, Press TV. Yeah, the guy from Press TV, too, he says, yeah, and I said, we had to leave the city. You know, we left Tehran because we thought it was going to be a nuclear bomb. I got a big show coming up about the October surprise. There's a show in the member section about serial killers. It's a really good one about this fellow here who does this, a profiler about serial killers. Walter Herbst came back. Like his third or fourth time, he's a JFK guy. And I tell you, this is the best interview we've had with Walter Herbst so far. All the other ones were great off the air. Before this show starts, we're great back and forth, great connection there. And then it seems to get a little weak when the interview starts. But this time I kept the pre-interview short, and we have a really good one. Got a guy coming on about the cult of Trump, who's a professor and a psychologist, talking about these cultists who worship Trump. And now Trump wants you to call him Daddy. I don't know if you've seen this. He actually played a video of him coming home from the Hague there with the song "Daddy's Home." It gets weirder and weirder, and grown men calling another man daddy. I can't even imagine, unless you're some type of homosexual, you're into that kind of thing. I don't know how else that works. I know a lot of people see me as some kind of father figure and stuff like that. And I don't know. I don't see it in another man, my own father, But even then, I took over the head of my household at like 19 years old. We got something coming up in the month of July. Okay, some of the biggest things we've ever done on this show. It's going to make international news. You remember the story about Pissgate, with the story about when Trump was in Russia for the beauty contest there, and a project there to work on a Trump Tower in Russia, that he was told, this is the hotel room, this is the room where Obama slept when he was in town. And is that the mattress Obama slept on? That's the mattress that Obama slept on. And he had some hookers come in and do a performance where they pissed on the mattress. Now, this came out in the Christopher Steele report. And the way it came out, by the way, Christopher Steele had several sources. I think he had 4 witnesses to this story, and all 4 people did not know each other. 2 of them knew each other, and 2 of them knew each other, but not all 4 knew each other. So this is a fairly corroborated story. I have a first-hand person involved in that story who's in the Mueller report, involved with Comey, the search warrant on his home, the whole deal, guys. 100% exclusive. Has not done an interview previous to this. Could still fall through. But so far, we've got him booked, okay? And this is going to be, no one's talked to this man before Ed Opperman. So this is another Ed Opperman report. First and only. And I can tell you that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, how many times that's happened on the Opperman report. So, multiple times. As a matter of fact, it's so weird. The other day, I played a repeat of the interview with Conchita Sarnoff, who wrote the book Trafficking, with a capital K, Trafficking, about Jeffrey Epstein. And I interviewed her way, way back in 2015, okay, which is before, all the experts and the superstars, experts on the Jeffrey Epstein case, before they even appeared in public and even uttered the word Jeffrey Epstein out loud. Okay, the legendary Ed, you got to have these legendary experts come on your show, Ed Opperman. These are the legendary experts. By the way, how did these legendary experts become legendary experts about Jeffrey Epstein if they had not listened to the first guy to talk about Jeffrey Epstein on the radio, Ed Opperman? Because they all know who I am. And when I talk to people like, prosecutors down in the Virgin Islands or Jeffrey Epstein's partners, or the lawyers involved in the Epstein litigation, I says, well, have you ever, have you ever heard of them? Or they come to me and says, Ed, have you heard of them? Where are they getting their information from? That no one's ever talked to them. No one knows them, Ed. Where do they come from, Ed Opperman? And I says, I don't know, So I tell the story about when I booked Conchita Sarnoff to come on the show. How I got a phone, I tried to book her a few times, and then finally she comes back to me out of the blue and she says, I agree to come on your show, but I will only do a half hour, which is so bizarre, most people beg off the 2 hour, back then it was in 2 hour shows with everyone, I needed to fill 2 hours. Then I started doing 2 1 hour shows to fill the 2 hours, which is what I still do now today. Very rarely do I do less than an hour. Okay, unless it's so boring, I can't continue. Okay, but she agrees to come on for a half hour, and then right before we're about to start taping, I get a phone call from her publisher. Mr. Opperman, how are you? I'm Victor Ostrovsky, a Mossad agent. Oh, really? Yeah, Mr. Ostrowski Mossad, how are you, sir? I'm the publisher of Conchita Zarnoff, my author. My publishing company is called, it was something called like his book that he wrote was called Deception, using deception to get your way. And it even discusses in there honeypots and using blackmail techniques in his book. Fascinating, a team there that the Mossad agent happens to be her publisher. Isn't that interesting? And for some reason felt the need to call me up and declare his Mossad connections after the interview had already been booked. And how did this guy get my phone number? Okay, so here you got to, just stop and think, the ludicrousy of this whole situation. That here we are back in 2015, and I have the Mossad calling me up at home to talk to me about an interview, and we have all these people today, these glorified experts who know everything, But meanwhile, I was on the radar of the freaking Mossad before these guys even heard the name Jeffrey Epstein. Hey, you got to get them on your show. They're going to teach you all about what's going on here. So anyway, I have her on the show, and we start talking about that quote, the famous Vicky Ward quote from New York Magazine, where Trump is booming from the speakerphone. I've known Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years. Hell of a guy, great guy. He sure lives his social life. Many of his girls he likes on the younger side, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And back again, right around that same time, we made a meme of that quote. And people swore up and down I was making it up. That Ed, I tried to find that quote, and we can't find it. Ed Opperman, you must be making it up. Ed Opperman's a liar. Okay? And it's true. It was very, very difficult to find. You had to put in Vicky Ward. I figured it was New Yorker Magazine or New York Magazine, but you had to put in New York Magazine. Trump, Epstein, speakerphone, quote, friend, 15 years. You had to put in all that stuff to find that quote. It was very difficult to find. And so after 100 times, the people contacted me and said, Ed, I can't find it. I had it all saved by that point. Here's the link, But she swore up and down, no, Trump did not say that. And she tried to change it. And we went back and forth about that quite a bit. And it wasn't until after the interview I found out that she was a member of Mar-a-Lago. She was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. By the way, back then, no one knew how to pronounce Ghislaine Maxwell. Everyone pronounced it Ghislaine because of the spelling. But she knew how to pronounce it Ghislaine. She knew it very well because she was friends with Ghislaine. She was friends with Trump. She was friends with Vicky Ward. By the way, Vicky Ward is also friends with Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump, and also a member or an attendee at Mar-a-Lago. Now, full disclosure, I was invited to Mar-a-Lago to go down there when Trump was announcing the 2020, the 2024, the 2020, when he was going to announce for 2020. I was invited for that announcement down at Mar-a-Lago, but I could not make it. I could not get down there in time. So I didn't go. But I wasn't, full disclosure, I was invited to partake with the Trump family down there at Mar-a-Lago, to partake with them and all the sex traffickers that seem to associate down there. So she's a member down there. She's friends with all these people, and then we dig a little deeper, and it's kind of funny because I gave the information to Pierce Redmond, and I let him. I didn't need the headaches. I had another incident right around that time, and I didn't need any more beatings from this crew. I didn't need to get my ass kicked once again by this bunch. So I gave it to Pierce Redmond. I didn't even warn him and tell him, hey, Pierce, I just got the shit kicked out of me by these Trump guys and these Epstein guys. But so hey, you break this story there, Mr. Redmond. Oh, God. If he ever knew, he'd come after me with a bat. He's a gentleman. He would never. I just wouldn't turn my back on him. But what do you call it? It turns out, we looked into her a little further, and her attorney, that she has an awareness foundation for young trafficking victims. But you really can't find of it doing any good other than raising money and putting on balls and banquets. And then her attorney for that is Kirkland Ellis, which was the Epstein attorney law firm as well. And then it turns out, too, that she was the one who was releasing all the information for Alex Acosta, who had put out that 4-page letter. Oh, poor me. The Epstein people came after me with his private investigators, and I just had to give them this deal. Ooh. And I read that 4-page letter, and I said, oh, my goodness, poor Mr. Acosta. I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I was stupid and gullible. Before I realized, the depths of the disinformation in this story. That still goes on till today, man, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I was just quoted National Enquirer and the Globe in the past couple of months. Both quotes are they're I said them. I said those words, but the actual quotes were way longer. You get a much better feel of what I'm trying to say if you listen to the entire quote than what they put out there in the magazines. It makes it look like I'm agreeing with what they're saying when really, anyway, move on. Because we got something coming up in the future with those people. It's all judo. But I try and I mentioned, I replayed the show and I said, hey, and I got a quote, and no one heard. Oh, Ed, I never knew that. But I told the story 10 times. Pierce Redmond told the story 10 times. But and people just, I guess, they don't pay attention closely. Like you think. When guests come on the show and they start. We have to make a correction. I said, dude, no one's paying attention. They don't know some of my biggest stories. They don't know. Most people don't know that I worked there. No one knows I worked in the Virgin Islands. That I kind of kept under my head, my hat there a bit. I kind of kept that quiet. But even with the Epstein lawsuits, people have no idea that I worked on that stuff. I said, that's my case, right? Oh, well, I had no idea. Over and over and over. The Kachita Sarnoff was the one who was publicizing all that stuff about the first publications of Lolita Island and Pedo Island and Lolita Express and all that. Those catchphrases now that they're so popular, where everyone wants you to look at an island and they want you to look at an airplane. When the majority of victims in this case were from the Royal Palms High School, where the detective in charge of that investigation who testified for the grand jury said no one at Royal Palms High School was unaware of what was going on with Epstein. And when you look into that grand jury testimony, the 2006 unsealed grand jury transcripts, which are available at the Opperman Report Patreon for free. You hear about how all the teenagers at the trailer parks all knew about the old sugar daddy down there, the millionaire down there, Jeffrey Epstein, perving on these young girls. Everyone knew. Everyone knew but Mr. Trump. It was just, man, I don't know what's going on in my in my Mar-a-Lago. I have no idea what goes on here. Little 14-year-old girl in my locker room gets abused by this man. I have no idea what's going on. No one told me. I didn't find out till 6 years later, right before the guy pled guilty. We went to jail for 18 months. Well, it turned out to be 9 months. Gad, Zooks, we're running. Look how fast we're moving time here. There's that. And then the other one is the 24-page letter that I obtained about the Clinton Foundation, about Jeffrey Epstein claiming during his negotiations for his sentencing that he claimed that he created the Clinton Foundation. Now, once again, I obtained that letter way back around 2014. Again, before anybody said the name of Jeffrey, but there was some YouTube things by that point. But still, it was still unheard of. Nobody knew what was going on with this story. And after he got arrested and after he died, then you saw all these people, Business Insider, Radar Online, all going to the Opperman Report website and purchasing it from my website for $1.99. So anytime you've seen it since then, it's because they purchased it from me. I got it right from the horse's mouth. Okay? It shouldn't be too hard, to figure out how I got that, man. But whatever. Now, by the way, it's kind of funny because this whole story with the Pissgate that's coming out, I just got lucky. I just reached out to the fellow involved, and he just happened to be ready to do an interview. And he's very, very camera shy. He's gun shy about doing this, but I think I have his confidence. But by coincidence, I know other people that know him and know that angle of the story. And those were people that helped me get the story about the Steve Bannon porn and meth house, which is another exclusive story to the Opperman Report. We're the first ones to report that there were padlocks on the inside doors and windows to keep somebody locked in, not to keep people locked out, but to keep people locked in. At Steve Bannon's house in Florida. And then there were indications they were filming porn. There's indication that they were cooking meth. There was scientific labs and stuff like that. We have the guy that was a tenant, and we have a reporter who wrote a story about it. And then later on, it was reported on Morning Joe. Of course, no credit given to me. But now, and one of the interesting things about that story is one of the people who led me to those people, through a series of, connections, is some of these Miami Cubans, these Miami CIA type Cubans, and it is so infuriating for me as a Cuban man myself. My mother and my brothers are all born in Cuba. That somehow, because we didn't stay down in Miami and live in that cult of Miami, that we went to New York and lived in the Bronx and all stuff like that, that somehow and I don't have a Cuban accent like they do, that somehow I'm not as Cuban as, and my opinion on Castro and Cuba are not as important as theirs. Which reminds me, too, later on tonight coming up, I didn't even get into this, man. Spreaker every Friday night at Spreaker.com. You sign up for free. Tonight we have on Spreaker is another Son of Sam show with the criminal justice Chris, who's a really good guest. Was one of those Son of Sam hits a mafia hit, which is something I heard way back a long time ago. That some of those hits perhaps were really organized crime hits and not Son of Sam cult hits. And then we have Jay Ponte coming on about his book, Be the Revolution. And it's all about, I forget what the title is, but it's a good show. And I know right away people are going to hear the title and they say, I'm not going to listen to that show. Hey, Ed, I love your show. And you do excellent reporting and all your stuff is so good. But I don't agree with your politics, Ed. I don't agree with Ed Opperman's politics, but he puts on a quality show. Our politics differ. And then they'll see this show here, and I say, I'm not going to listen to that. So you have no idea what my politics are. If you're not going to listen to these shows, then you don't know you don't know what you're disagreeing with. You're disagreeing with something in your imagination that you imagine my politics to be, okay? Because you have every opportunity to listen to this. My own father. Oh, yeah, I saw Alan Wood's socialism. I didn't listen to that one. Why not, Dad? Well, because I know I'm not going to agree with it. You're not going to agree with something before I say it. Okay, well, he's 93 years old. He has an excuse, okay? You're a grown man, I listen to different opinions all the time. I have them on the show here. The ones that aren't afraid to come on. I got to tell you, these right-wing MAGAs, man, as soon as they hear who I am, they're afraid to come on. They just won't come on because God forbid, they might be asking a scary question. Ooh. This one pussy, right? This guy about 9/11, right? I had him to come on the show. In fact, another guest just name-dropped his name a few times, and I just let it go. Because this guy is such a cowardly liar. I booked him to come on the show, and then the day of the show, I says, hey, I'm going to be calling you at 11:30. Oh, I'll be right here, Ed. Ready to go. And then 11:30 comes around. Hey, man, I'm calling him. He's not picking up the phone like a little pussy coward that he is. Okay, Mr. Fitzgerald. A little pussy coward. And then the little pussy coward later on, I'm doing a show about the Oklahoma City bombing, that he didn't even listen to the show, and he's declaring, Ed Opperman's a gatekeeper, and Ed Opperman's what's that called? A limited hangout and all this stuff like that. He invited me to come on a show, and I quietly declined. Well, what a bullshit liar. Pussy liar. Okay? Mr. 9/11 expert, the greatest expert ever on 9/11 is a pussy and a liar. Okay, he agreed to come on the show, then cowardly backed out, then lied about it, and claimed that he never agreed to come on. I got a screenshot. Where are you? I'm calling. I'm emailing. Little pussy couldn't even answer because he's afraid. He's afraid. Ed Opperman's going to ask a scary question, and I'm very scared. I can't answer scary questions because I'm an 9/11 expert. Okay, pussy. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I'll come on all takers. Okay, I've gone on right-wing shows, man. Oh, man, you should have seen the shows back I used to go on about Sarah Palin. I used to go on talk shows in Alaska. Okay, and then those guys, man, they would go and leave bad reviews about Email Revealer or my PI business and stuff like that. After you'd see the comments right after the show. I took on West Memphis Stream. I'm not afraid. I'll go on any show. As a matter of fact, I just recently been posting some stuff. Hey, I was really sick. I had to stop doing interviews, man, because I just couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe during the interviews. I'd run out of breath. It was horrible, man. I did a couple of really bad interviews, man. This really nice woman did this thing on TikTok, and I couldn't even breathe during the interview, man. But I'll come on. All you little pussies out there make these accusations about me. I'll come on your show. I'm afraid of you. I got the truth, man. I got the truth and reality, man. Okay, on my side. I got no government contracts, no government employees, no undercover operations, none of the stuff that you got to worry about. Okay. All right. We just had here the election of Zohran Mamdani in New York City, and I have never seen the MAGA right, so terrified and so discombobulated and having such a little hissy fit. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And now they're even talking about they want to have this guy deported. Whoa, this is a legal election, guys. Okay, and the brutal racism and bigotry coming out of people's mouths. Elected congressmen. Just because the guy's a Muslim. By the way, I don't even think he is a Muslim. I think he's Christian. But just because someone's race and their religion, there's just this brutal bigotry and racism coming out of people. Just not like it's normal. This would have been censured just 5 years ago. This would have been censured in Congress if he made these kind of statements. You can't say to him, my God, this guy has been legally elected. People want him. And you know why they want him? Because he's legit. Because people aren't afraid of the word socialism anymore, ladies and gentlemen. All right, now let's look at some of this fellow's policies here. Some of them, I think he heard from my show. Okay? Because I was talking about a state supermarket years ago. Years ago, I was talking about this. As a matter of fact, my theory was only people who had food stamp cards. What we would do is we would have state-run factories for paper products, soap and toothpaste and toilet paper and things like that you can't buy with your food stamp card, with your EBT card. And we would have those little stores, state-run stores, right by the high schools, right by the welfare offices, right by the Social Security office, right by the courthouses. All the places where people can get to now on public transportation, where there's no excuse that you can't get there. And we would have state-run supermarkets there where people could buy subsidized products, generic brands, at a non-profit, from a non-profit facility. Now, this fellow here, Mamdani, wants to expand this, with bread and meat and, rice and beans and things like that, which I think is great. I think this is a great idea. The no-frills staples to feed your family, okay, that everyone can eat an affordable meal. That's radical? That's radical? In the richest country on the planet? With this billionaire piece of filth, Jeff Bezos, in that pathetic disgrace of a tuxedo he's wearing with this wife of his. Well, he probably has like a $10 million boob job there in her tacky wedding outfit, where they rent the whole city of Venice for their wedding, this tacky the demonstration with these two. I can't help to remind you that Amazon sells rope. You can buy rope on Amazon, and rope has many uses. And you can look back in history and the declarations of people saying that the capitalists will sell us the rope. And this may be a good time to start stocking up and buying rope, okay? Because rope comes for many purposes. You may have some things you might want to tie up. Or things you may want to dangle from the flagpoles out in front of your, not the flagpoles, the light posts. There may come a day, Okay, Mr. Bezos. No. They need more tax breaks, these folks here. So I've been saying all along about the state supermarket. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's going to be a huge success. And I think that the fear we see, because they see if this can happen in New York, it can happen in D.C., it can happen in Los Angeles, especially with the opposition to these deportations in Los Angeles, where they are widely unpopular. There is no way, if the elections are not completely rigged, that we're not going to see a blue storm in the midterms. Okay, and then hopefully then what do you call an impeachment with some teeth, where he's actually removed, convicted, imprisoned. Oh, there's always the rope, but. I said this a long time ago that we should have these where you could buy toilet paper, and paper products that are manufactured by the unemployed. Those are simple factory jobs that anybody can pretty much do. Even the worst alcoholics and stuff can do those jobs throughout history. And I remember a frequent listener to the show said, "But Ed, somehow he got my Skype number. He says send me messages on Skype. But Ed, if you give people cheaper toilet paper, that will remove all incentive for them to go out and work." And I said on the show how stupid that was. Okay, if I could get a break on toilet paper, I'm not going to want to work hard and save money for a vacation or to send my child to college. Just how ridiculous that thinking is. And the guy got mad at me, unfriended me, and blocked me all over. But you're doing me a favor. You can be bugging me on Skype. Your stupid opinions. I'm better off without you, man. Let's face it. No hard feelings. But I'm better off without you, man. Okay, what do you call it? Oh, by the way, too, not only will we have state supermarkets, but New York is going to have free car washes with the tears of the capitalists, because the crying capitalists who are crying all over this victory of the socialists in New York State, New York City at least. So I'm very optimistic that this is part of a socialist wave we're going to see in this country. People aren't stupid anymore. Most people are not afraid of the word socialism. They're not afraid of the concept of workers who work hard, keeping the fruit of their labor and not having a chunk of that money go to lazy slobs like Jeff Bezos, who hasn't worked, or the Walton family heirs, who never worked a day in their life and are living like kings, when people like you and me have to get up and go to work every day. And if people like you get up and go to work every day, we should keep all of the profits from our labor, not give it to people, stockholders, or sit back and do no work. And that's just a fact. And you say, well, Ed, how do you raise capital? You raise capital through a state bank. And once again, without these fees and these exorbitant profits going to stockholders of the banks, the banks would be owned by the people. Nationalize the oil industry, $200 billion a quarter. All those profits would go back to you and me, okay? Not to some people sitting back doing no work, okay? That's how these things, that's how you have success. That's how you have efficiency. That's how, and by the way, too, this idea of the state supermarket, this goes way back to the Russian Revolution, where they provided state lunches for workers to have, free, healthy lunches. Canteens, they call them, and we should have that too. Cooked meals, available to people working people. Free transportation to your job. Why should you have to pay to get to your job? Okay, maybe if the travel, the bus or the train is for leisure, for going to the beach, maybe a small fee for that. But for going to your job, you have to pay to go to work. You gotta pay to go to work. Stop and think. People say, well, why should I have to pay tax and then pay sales tax on money I already made? Well, why should you have to pay to go to work? You shouldn't. You should be getting paid for the time it takes you to go to work, okay? And if you really want to get to it, and we could have all these things, if the money we generate from our labor was not going to lazy stockholders who sit home and do nothing. Okay? Who inherited those stocks in the first place? Okay, let's see how we're doing on time. I lose my voice every Friday night when I do this. You know that? Couple of more things. Let's see. Oh, there's so much here. I got a ton of stuff. Wait a second. Oh, let's get into P. Diddy real quick. Okay, P. Diddy, the verdict is coming through. They dropped some charges. Now, I'm confused here. What happened to these gun charges? Somehow these gun charges are coming under the racketeering charges? There are no specific gun charges. The guy's got 3 defaced, fully automatic weapons, and he's not being charged for that? What the hell is going on with that? That's a charge you can't beat. Okay, because all the prosecution has to do is walk into the court with the guns. Look, here's the search warrant. Here's a video of the search warrant. This is where we found the guns. They're in his bedroom. They're in his garage. They're in his porta potty. They're over in his attic over here. This is where we found the guns. Throw them on the table. Those are the guns. Now look at we got a witness on the stand, ATF agent. I'm holding up the gun. The serial number has been defaced. It's been filed down, which is illegal in the United States of America. 10 years. Mr. Diddy, bailiff, take him away. That's that open and shut. You don't get away with that. All right? That's like when I had my case with the pot. They says, hey, they're going to walk in there. They're going to throw the pot on the table. That's his pot. There's no way around that end. Okay? Plus, you're on video buying the pot to begin with your stories about running with the bulls, you idiot. I got to get those videos, man. If we can get those videos, they're worth gold. We would make $1 million with those videos. Okay, but the things with P. Diddy. They dropped some arson charges. Okay, the arson charges were a joke. Okay, when the testimony on the arson charges, there was no connection to P. Diddy with those arsons. Now, the fact that they let that in front of the jury, that's going to be grounds for an appeal, which may have been where the payoff took place in this case. But these other charges, okay, paying sex workers, and first of all, just paying sex workers and paying sex workers to travel for sex work, and coercion for sex work, and coercion for sexual by force, sex trafficking by force or coercion. Now, those are serious crimes, 10 years, and I think they got that locked up, okay? Then the other one is racketeering and conspiracy, which somehow these gun charges are falling under the racketeering and conspiracy. There's a lot of talk about drug use and drug sales and drug trafficking and these gun charges, which is life. You can get life for the racketeering and conspiracy. If they don't get these charges, it's the prosecution blew this case because this is all there. Now, I don't get this stuff about why these gun charges are not specifically. Now, a fellow came out, Doge, right? Now, Trump came out and said, Doge is a bunch of bullshit. This is what the President of the United States said when he was fighting with Elon Musk, the head of Doge, who said that Trump is on the Epstein list. Okay, all right? All right, this is what they said, not what I'm saying. This is what they're saying, okay? Now, one of the Doge engineers who they sent him into Veterans Affairs, they said he agrees. There was no fraud. There was no abuse. It's rather well efficient, he says. So what? And his name is Sahil Lavenga. Now, you can look him up, okay? This is a story that's in print. Now, here's the deal, man. And so then, if there was no fraud, there was no abuse. They went in there, looked for it. They couldn't find any. But yet, Elon Musk is saying, oh, we found this, we found that, we found this, right? All these people, with this data, 100 years old, getting, 150 years old, all this crazy stuff. So what do we know? Just like Mr. Trump says, Mr. Trump, Epstein's friend, said that it's bullshit. Okay? So then what's the reason? Why did they go in there and do this? Well, they went in there and they were able to obtain. Okay? A lot of time you hear me say the word obtain. I obtained it. Okay? We obtained this information. Okay? They obtained this information that can't be bought. You can't purchase information from the IRS. You can't. I can't. Okay. I met with a guy who said he could one time. We never went through ahead with it. We can get into that story. I've told you a story. Bob Mayhew. Okay. When I went to meet him because I was told he could get IRS information, and it was my goal to sell that information. never came to fruition. Okay. But I heard from other people that he could do it. I won't say the name, but did know the name. Said the name on the show before many times. Now, what do you call it? You can't get information from Veterans Affairs. You can't get information from IRS or Social Security. That information is not readily available for investigators for purchase. You would have to have a guy in there who can get a look at stuff. Like you can get some information if you know somebody in child support enforcement. They have access to tax returns and things like that. And if you have somebody in there, they can get a peek at it, or sometimes take a screenshot or take a picture of a computer screen, and they can sell you that. But on a grand scale, to obtain this information, it's not for sale even for someone like Elon Musk. You have to come up with a scheme to get that information. Now, when he bought Twitter, who came into the deal to buy Twitter? Oracle. Oracle's a data mining company. Musk bought Twitter as part of a data mining endeavor. He's got all of our private messages on Twitter. He's got people, he knows who we blocked on Twitter. He knows who we follow on Twitter. He knows what we say on Twitter. And he can data mine that information, not for our benefit, but to manipulate us, okay, to guide us, direct us, manipulate us, to abuse us, to steal from us, and to sell us things. That's their motive. And now they got all this other information. They told us the motive was to save us money, fraud, and abuse, and some stupid people believed it. But clearly, they got their own motives, and they were able to obtain that information. They have it now. And there's no taking it back. Once they got that, there's no way to get it back. Just like Diddy with his machine guns. You know what I mean? Okay, let's see. What else? Doge is bullshit. P. Diddy gun trafficking charges. It's either a leak or a lie. Trump went on a rampage. He did this thing where he attacked Iran with this bunker busting bomb, and he came out and said, "This is the greatest bombing ever in the world. I got the greatest bombs and the greatest. It's totally destroyed." And then it started getting leaked from his own people and his own military and his own intelligence that it really wasn't that effective. That there's video of trucks leaving there with the material. And even the facilities weren't damaged to the extent that they say they are. So Trump started freaking out and said, "That's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie, they're lying." But now he says it's a leak, it's a leak, it's a leak, it's a leak. They leaked it, it's a treason. It can't be both. If it's leaked, that means it's true. They leaked something that was true. That's a leak. You can't have it call something information both leaked and a lie. It's one or the other. He's claiming it's a leak. They're investigating as a leak. They're blaming the Democrats for the leak. It's the truth. Okay. Thank you. There's one more thing. Do I want to tell you about it right now? I'm going to hold back and not tell you. Okay. Even though we have time to tell you. Maybe I'll tell you. I told you about recently about how my car was broken into. And there's some of the people who I suspect involved with that. As a matter of fact, one of the names who I suspect involved with that, the guy blocked me on Instagram, and I started getting all these attempts to hack into my Instagram. Then suddenly my Facebook and Instagram were both taken down. They were canceled. I went in and got an appeal. They uncanceled it, but it was shut down. I was shut down for a good 5-7 days with no Instagram and no Facebook. Around that same time, I took notice that a whole bunch of these right-wing characters had, I went to see, hey, a lot of them had me blocked, but even more had me unfollow them. You know how on Twitter, if I don't like somebody, I can go to and have them unfollow me. I'll unfollow them, and I'll have them unfollow me. And I won't block them. I'll just unfollow each other. that I don't have to deal with their stupidity. And I'll usually do that first before I block somebody. And I'll even tell somebody many times before I block them, I'll say, hey, look, man, I don't have the time to give you the kind of a time and attention that you seem to want from me. I don't have it for you. So I'm asking you to please tone it down. Stop messaging me. Stop, commenting. Stop flooding my page with your comments. Back up. Okay, I need like 90% less of what you're doing now, and usually they can't control themselves. They can't do that. They need my attention. I'm daddy to them, and so then finally I have to block them. Okay, and then years later they'll come. Ed Opperman is this horrible person. We've discovered all this. You discovered 5 years after I blocked you. Okay, right. Okay, tell the world how horrible I am. Okay, and now I'm exposing Ed Opperman because he blocked me 5 years ago. And Opperman had enough of me 5 years ago, and now I'm going to tell you how bad he is. Good luck. Now here's the deal. What happened is there was some kind of circulation of my name saying, hey, this guy is a problem. This guy's dipping into too many things, and unfollow him or block him, or have him unfollow you, because there's a bunch of people. Okay, there's a bunch all at once, and some of them are nearby. Some of them, this serious people, people in the Trump administration, people in the top people in Florida politics and the GOP. They have me blocked. The chairman of the GOP has a Florida reporter blocked. Okay, and I got press credentials to go anywhere I want in Florida. So it's pretty serious stuff. Like I'm considered like a threat to these people, and some of them, have been, involved in situations, with mercenary groups, and trying to hire them to kidnap a guy for Turkey, and he has his meetings here, nearby where I live. So anyway, I don't know why I'm telling you that, but it's in my notes. I don't know how that flowed into my notes, but just kind of, it's out there. I guess something to consider. And so, my friends, we've made it through another Opperman report. Another week in the can. I really need your support. Patreon. I got this huge Pissgate story coming up, man. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. You're not going to hear an interview with this guy anywhere else. I need to put out press releases. I need to make TikToks. I need to make Reels. This is going to be a big, big, big break for us if I have your support. If we can get some donations at OppermanReport.com. If we can get some PayPal donations to OppermanReport@gmail.com. If we can get some memberships at Patreon.com, the Opperman Report. Then we could make a big splash with this story here and get our other reporting more. You only need, one big story on Wikipedia, and then all these other past guests, Hoffenberg and Richard Lambert from Anthrax, and people from Octopus, Bill Hamilton, that the show, the Opperman Report interview, would be on their Wikipedia page. And when years from now, when people go to their Wikipedia, they'll find the Opperman Report. And this is how that stuff is done. Okay, and this is how that stuff is done when I'm fighting an uphill battle to get my information out there. People who listen to this would say over and over, we talked about this 5 years ago. We talked about this 10 years ago. And they'll say, yeah, I heard it first on Ed Opperman. Well, we want more people to hear that, don't we? Like, we don't want this stuff to be a secret. We want this info out there. So that's what we're doing, guys. And I need your help. So a little donation, a little support. You want to help make TikToks, Reels. When I advertise on the show, we could use some advertisers to come back and advertise on the show. That would be nice. Good night. I love you. I'll see you next week.
We skip the light fandango Hot Wheels cross the floor. I was feeling kind of seasick. The crowd called out for more. The room was humming harder as the ceiling flew away. When we call out for another drink, the waiter brought a tray. And so it was that later, as the miller told his tale, that her face at first just ghostly turned the wider shade of pale. She said there is no reason, and the truth is plain to see. But I wander through my playing cards, would not let her be one of 16 vestal virgins who were leaving for the coast. And although my eyes were open, they might just as well have been closed. And so it was later, as the miller told his tale, that her face at first just ghostly